And we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri, your host as always. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Patriots' loss to the Titans, a couple things about the trade deadline, and then the upcoming game later this week. So we're going to get into that right now. Before we jump into it, please do subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Again, Patriots 4th and 2. Like, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. Before we start anything, as always, for the last decade plus, Steve, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm a little tired. My son and I stayed up.
Election night. So
yeah, we were watching the election stuff, flipping through the channels all night long, and it was interesting evening to say the least. So
yes.
Anyway, for those of you who did stay up, we hope you're still tuning in with us. I know we're all a little tired, so it's coffee time.
That's true. I got my iced coffee right here. But let's get into it. About the game. I mean, honestly, Steve, I'm really disappointed. I'll get your reaction and your analysis first. But I'm pretty disappointed. I felt like this is let's not sugarcoat. We're not a sugarcoating podcast. The Patriots aren't going to win a lot of games this year. We knew that going into it. I thought this was a game they should have won, and I thought it was a game that was winnable going into it, if that makes sense. Okay, and to come out short, especially with how your young quarterback making his fifth start was battling, I thought really was impressive. But I think there were some disappointing factors. But anyway, they come up short against the Titans on the road. Give me your initial thoughts, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I thought, I thought it was very disappointing because, especially the offensive line showed a little bit of life against the Jets.
Correct.
Not so much in the running game, but the way they were protecting. I thought the offensive line, they were dominated on Sunday against Tennessee. They had zero running game, zero. They rushed for 110 yards on 20 carries, and you look at that and you say, "Oh, five yards a carry. That's 5.5 yards a carry. That's pretty good." No, the running backs carried the ball 12 times for 16 yards or 15 yards, excuse me, and all the rest were scrambles by Drake May, 8 for 95. So when you look at the, as you say all the time, the macro version of this, that's pretty doggone bad. See, I was going to say something else, but I know Miguel listens.
we can't afford Miguel Swear Jar anymore, so we got to be careful.
But the fact that they weren't able to run the ball at all, and it was all Drake May, and then it was all Drake May, in the passing game because he was getting no protection. And I was very, very disappointed and surprised by that. I thought they had made some inroads into their issues. And then for some reason, they decided, they had the same offensive line from the week before available. And then they went to an eighth different one. And that was a disaster, actually, before, they switched it back. But
right.
Defensively, again, they had trouble stopping the run, and a lot of it was on the edge with Tony Pollard.
They're having a really big problem with the run right now, and honestly, it's on both sides of the ball. I mean, that's one of my bigger takeaways of this game is that it's a continuous issue, and they are having problems blocking and getting a run going past any kind of point of contact. Defensively, like you just said, they're trying, like, people are running to the edges and there's no containment. There's nothing. And I know they're missing Barmore and Bentley and Peppers and Duggar in this game. And as you and I talked about offline the other day, those four defenders are probably 2 through 5 your best defenders. I would put Christian Gonzalez at 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you're missing 4 of your 5 best players
And
on
then
your
right down
defense
the
and
middle.
your team.
Yeah.
Like you're literally missing it. They're at this point they're literally missing about 50% of the best players on their team
Yeah.
for whatever issue.
And it's right down the middle
And
of your
it's right
defense.
down the middle, and you're feeling it on defense. And if there's something they did good the last few years, it was stopping the run and containing that run. And if you're talking about how you're going to sell AVP on offense, you're talking about getting that run game going because they need to run it. I'll tell you right now, if I see another freaking drive, I almost did what you just did. if I see another freaking offensive drive from the Patriots where it's run for a yard, run for 2 yards, incomplete pass on 3rd down, punt, I'm going to hang myself. So I can't like AVP's offense. We were being sold that it was going to be a better run option, a better run scheme is a better word, better run scheme, and that was going to kind of, trickle into every other facet of the game, whether it's RPOs, play action, whatever it is, take some deep shots down the middle. That's what Drake excelled at UNC. He's shown the ability to do that now. The only good runner on the team right now was your quarterback. And I love his toughness. I love his attitude. At the same time, I'm like, dude, can you freaking slide? Like, what are we talking about?
He keeps going head first. And
no, it's mad. It's mad. It is maddening. It is crazy. It's crazy that we've dealt with this.
I love the compete level.
I
And,
do too.
it's funny when I watch Josh Allen, not comparing the two, I know people are doing that. But
the styles are similar, but Josh, people don't realize how big Josh Allen is.
yeah,
I mean, he's big
bigger
guy.
than the linebackers that are trying to tackle him.
Yeah, I mean, Drake is
he's a good size,
6'3", 230, but like he's not as thick. I mean, I joke about it all the time. I joked about with this you on the phone the other day. I called Josh Allen a moose for a reason. He is very, very different than most quarterbacks. He is a big
and like a
dude.
moose, he can run fast.
And he can run faster than you'd expect.
Yes, and he can run you over.
Yes.
But but they have that same mentality, like, I'm not going to go down,
Mhm.
and I don't want to see Drake May doing that because he's taken enough punishment as it is, when he's throwing the football.
Well, I think there's it's a very fine line, and we don't have to get into the semantics of it, but I think there's a very fine line about appreciating the quarterback's toughness and the willingness to make a play. I just think there are moments that you have to realize that you need to live to fight another down. You know what I mean? And I just think that there are too many times. I thought early in the first quarter he had a good run and he kind of lunged forward, helmet first, and I'm like, I appreciate that. I love that you're willing to throw it on the line. I loved his attitude coming into the press conference after the game. Like everything about the kid that has validated why you and I have talked about him sincerely last October. And at the same time, I'm like, hey man, first quarter on 2nd down, maybe don't jump head first into 2 defenders.
Yeah.
4th quarter, game on the line into the end zone, different conversation. Okay.
Yes. You got to do what you got to do.
There's got to be some kind of balance, and he'll learn that, and that's fine. But I do think it's definitely, treacherous territory.
Yeah, and getting back to that, what I really like about him is, he's getting a lot of bouquets thrown at him by his teammates, and that's great.
And rightfully so.
And rightfully so. He's getting a lot of bouquets thrown at him, but he's not buying into that. Like, I mean, he hears it, he appreciates it, but you listen to him after the game, he's picking apart the things that went wrong. And he's focusing on that, how he can improve. And that to me is so huge because that's the right attitude. That's the kind of guy that's going to develop into, an all-pro type quarterback. And that in itself is why he was the right guy.
Right.
We knew about the athleticism. We knew about his big arm, and the way he sees the field. And he's shown that, 2 of the big things that, people were talking about him during draft season was his footwork. And we're not hearing so much about that anymore, right? Because his footwork has improved. and he's put the time and effort in to shore that up, and which is helping with his, at times he was inaccurate because of that footwork. And I think his accuracy has improved as well. And once they get some better skill position guys catching the football on the field, and they shore up that offensive line. And we were talking about the offensive line earlier. I really think going in next year, you're looking at the starting five. I think at a minimum they need 3 new starters.
I mean, we literally just had this conversation yesterday. I think
Yeah.
there's no way. I think there's. Okay, we're gonna put the Titans game aside, and I'm gonna make this a quick little 30-second rant, and then we can move on. And because we'll have months after the season to talk about this. Left tackle needs to be the first pick. I don't know if it's going to be where their actual selection is or if they can trade down and get extended capital, but left tackle needs to be that first pick. They need to sign some kind of veteran interior lineman, and I do think David Andrews is going to be done after the year, just to retire, and it will suck because I think he's just such a great teammate and a great person to have in that locker room. At the same time, I think that you might have some options in either Jake Andrews or Cole Strange or maybe something on the roster. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they like City So, this new regime. I just don't seem like it seems like it's...
Yeah, he's regressed this year.
He has. Was it Mafi? Who was playing fullback a couple of times in the game? It was... I'll have to look it up. I know the number.
I thought it was Jaheim Bell.
No. It was 62 who played.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
I'm just blanking out on the name, but this is what happens when you do the show live, people. All right, it's not gonna be perfect all the time. All right, Steve and I don't do schedules or topics. We literally just raw dog this thing. So here's where we're at. But yeah, no. Anyway, I just think you're gonna have, like you said, 2 or 3 new starters next year, and I think that's got to be the priority. I think they're going to throw a bag at a receiver and get a veteran corner, deep edge class. So what I would love to do is throw a bag at a veteran receiver, go ahead and draft a left tackle early after moving down 2 or 3 spots, go ahead and get an edge rusher early in that second round. This edge class is deep. Anyone who listens to the show, usually start looking at the edge players in the top of the second round. I think that's where we could be. And then you get a veteran corner to help out Christian Gonzalez. Maybe you move John Jones to free safety. I mean, I think you have some options there, and then you have some versatility, and it's not going to be all fixed in one season. We knew it wasn't going to be fixed all last season. There are changes. Some are for the better. Some have definitely been for worse, but I think some of it has been things they can't control, which are health issues or off the field issues or whatever.
Yeah, I think they really missed with their projections on the offensive line. They
that's
came
the
into
biggest
this,
second. That is the biggest second guess, and it's been glaring the entire season.
Yeah, they thought they could get by this season with the guys that they had, and then it not only did like a guy here or there, it's like everything fell apart on them, right, between poor play and injuries, and that's, as you said, glaring issue, and like Okorafor. I mean, they had hopes that he could play left tackle, this season, and then he had a really bad first game, and then he left the team. So I mean, that right there, that really puts a damper on things when you're trying, to piece together an offensive line.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Let's man, there's so many different things. Let's get into, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, okay? Was the decision for them to, okay, how do I want to do this? I want to talk about the decision about whether they should have gone for 2 or not at the end of the game. I guess before we do that, I want to ask you about your opinion of Drake May's last throw and how that whole thing set up. I would say that, as bad as the line has been, They bought him some time. Some of it was kind of designed by the Titans rush scheme. They weren't really trying to get too aggressive. They were trying to drop some guys back. I thought Drake did a great job of showing, again, something he's shown a lot in his starts, which I'm really happy about, is his poise. He doesn't look like he's moving too quickly mentally. His eyes were downfield, and he was showing some good mobility in the pocket. I thought at one point he was going to break out and run, but he just kind of rolled out, and then was able, as he was getting hit, through that lob to get that touchdown pass at the end. Give me your thoughts on that last play. I thought that showed a lot of grit.
Oh, a ton of grit. And the other thing it showed was, he kept his eyes down the field the entire time, and he didn't panic. It seemed like there was nothing there at the beginning. He kind of stepped to his right a little bit. And at that point, I thought he was going to throw it in the right corner of the end zone. And then, there was nothing there. He started drifting back to his left. And like you, I thought he was going to attempt to run. And I think that thought was maybe in his mind. But then the two linebackers recognized that, and they came flying in. And that's when he had to get rid of the ball. But, you talk about a play, not a lot of quarterbacks can make that play. That's one of those, either you have that kind of, gene, I guess you could say.
It's just the it factor, man. It sounds cliche, but that's what it is. And I encourage every single person listening to the show or watching it on YouTube, I encourage every single person to go back, look at the film, and look at the sideline when he makes that play. These guys believe in him. They're behind him. Honestly, it's actually been really impressive how, because we'll be talking about Caleb Williams here shortly, given the game coming up this week against Chicago. But honestly, it's been impressive to see Caleb, Jaden, and Drake all on kind of different levels. Drake, I would say, is behind those two guys, as he was throughout the pre-draft process, but not a bad way. I'm not saying it like a bad thing. Those guys, like there are some people I listened to, who did I listen to on NBC the other day, who was talking about how Jaden Daniels is just blowing him away with how adverse he is. I'm like, he had 55 college starts. We talked about this in the pre-draft process for months, you and I specifically, and everybody else. It was the discourse. It's Jaden Daniels is 55 college starts. We know where Caleb Williams is. We know about the variation between those two guys. And then you talk about Drake May, who has literally less than half of the start that Jaden Daniels has. So it's not surprising to me that Jaden Daniels has come in and had early success. I'm not surprised Caleb Williams is doing some things that he's doing. He's had some boneheaded turnovers, and he's made some miraculous throws that literally are like Patrick Mahomes light. And that was the story coming out. And what was Drake May? It was all about the footwork. He needs more time. He regressed his last year at UNC versus his sophomore year. And they needed to work on, his pocket presence and some of these things. He's fearless he's fearless running the ball, and he has no problem throwing the ball over the middle, which some young quarterbacks do. He has disproved all of those things, I think, at a faster rate. But I think I just want to give flowers to all three of the top three quarterbacks, because I think they've all been really impressive in different ways. They've all had their rookie moments, but we're talking about 9 games in, 8 games in, depending on where the bye week is. I think I just have been impressed by all three of them.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Bears here in a few moments.
We'll save the Bears conversation for a bit.
Yeah, but you look at the wide receivers Williams has. Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, can we get Drake some help, please? It's like, can we block for him? Even one of our best players on the entire team has been battling a foot issue, in Ramondre Stevenson for the last couple of weeks. It's like, we can't run the ball. Gibson hasn't looked like the same player as he started the year. I don't know if he's dealing with something or what, but I don't know if Stevenson being out and him being the lead back, he just took too much of a pounding. I don't know. But you basically have a player in Jalen Polk, who I thought was going to be a surefire, solid receiver, has been a mental nutcase. You have Hunter Henry, who's been your best receiver, who's a tight end, who's on the backside of his career, and then you have Pop Douglas, who they either can get the ball to, or they can't figure out how to get the ball to. I don't know if we need to give him a GPS map or what, but it's like, dude, everything around Drake has been total chaos and inconsistent the last couple weeks.
Yeah. And, Hunter Henry is by far the most consistent guy on the offense,
There's not even a comparison.
Right. And
I'm not saying he's putting up like Tony Gonzalez in his prime numbers. I'm just saying, like, even if it's like 4 for 45 or whatever, like it was against the Jets, it just felt different because
but when you call his number,
he's ready.
He's there.
Yep.
And that you can't ask for more than that. So, but when your tight end is your biggest target and your only really consistent receiver, it's tough. So, and that came back to haunt him a little bit in the Titans game. But, again, I mean, at the end of the game, they got a really big return from Marcus Jones again. He puts him around midfield, and
I thought for sure he was taking one to the house. I actually put some money on him being a touchdown scorer on DraftKings. I thought for sure the Titans have been terrible on special teams. I thought he was going to steal them one at one point.
That one he caught on the 5-yard line. At first, I was like, well, I knew how bad the Titans have been covering kicks, but at the same time, you're like,
Yeah, but at the same time, I would say this, and I'm not saying he's Dante Hall. I'm not saying he's Devin Hester. No. Okay, but he is one of the top. Put him in the top 5 somewhere in the NFL of returners in the league. I think he's dynamic. And I honestly wish, like we had said on the last show, I honestly wish they would get him involved in offense every once in a while too, just for splash plays. Because I think with the ball in his hands, he can make things happen. He's limited in coverage at times. He also still makes good plays. He had a great hit on one of these guys, and he's not a big guy. He's like 5'8", like 170. So he's not a big dude, but he is a dynamic returner. So with him, put it this way, if it's him versus X player or whatever player is returning, if X player returned it from the 5, I'd be flipping out about how dumb that is. Marcus Jones, yeah, you have the keys. If you feel like you can go, then you just go. He's proven it in his very short career so far. He has proven that he is worth the gamble on. And if we only get to the 16 and we could have gotten to the 20, then we lost 4 yards. That's okay, because I know that on the next attempt, he's going to get me to the 45. Or whatever.
And that's what he did on that. He got him to midfield. I mean, 44 yards, puts him at the Patriots' 49-yard line. That was a big moment for them. And those are the kind of things that they need moving forward. I mean, he's shown it. I mean, he did it last week against the Jets.
Yep.
And then this week against the Titans, he had 2 really solid returns. And, it helped the offense, and you could see that. They just need to be much more consistent. And again, I'm not putting that on Drake May. I mean, he made some bad plays. That first interception, he
had that interception. He just didn't see the safety. The safety was playing this robber defense, so he was kind of like drifting back and forth. It was just a bad throw. Look, we're going to have to survive those kind of plays, though, Steve. You know what I mean?
And then that final play, if you watch the all 22, what happens is
I actually haven't gone back and looked at the all 22 of that final play.
What happens is Kendrick Bourne was running an underneath like an intermediate route.
Mm-hmm.
And he tripped and fell. So the safety that was the over-the-top help for Bourne saw that, and he immediately started hightailing it down the field toward Butte, and he was the one that undercut it and came up with the interception. Great play by him.
Yep.
But, and it brings me back, and I'm going to go on a little rant off the rails here, but
do it. I love it.
It
can't be just me.
Drake May, he shouldn't have thrown that on first down, that deep ball.
Agreed.
They thought they saw something there, And again, this might be something in the future that, they won't make that play. But Booty had a step on his defender.
He just
Now,
overthrew him by like 6 yards.
yeah, because he was throwing into the wind. And, they were saying the wind was definitely affecting things.
My cousin Paul is a Titans fan, and he lives in Nashville, about 5 minutes from the stadium. And he was saying the wind was definitely a factor.
Right. But why were they throwing into the wind in overtime?
Yeah.
They lost the coin toss, and then they didn't take the wind. And I'm like, why in the world are they, kicking into the wind in overtime? They should have the wind at their back.
Sure.
And I thought that was a complete blunder.
Yeah.
And
I think that we've seen some good balls from Drake for sure, obviously. But I do think we've seen some erratic, inconsistent throws, not only on the short crossers, but I also think on the deep balls, we've either seen they're either dropping the bucket throws or they're doing what the Booty thing was, which you just mentioned, that was like 5 or 6 yards overthrown. Which is, I mean, it's a little, not to keep comparing him to Josh Allen, but there were a lot of comparisons to their game kind of coming out of the draft and what we talked about. And we knew we were going to have to kind of live and die on that hill. But there was a couple of throws there where I'm sure he'd like to have back, and I do think that if he can harness that and get that to, to kind of minimize like those issues, I do think that in the long run that he'll be, very special. But there has been a little bit too much inconsistency in his accuracy, which is probably my biggest complaint about him to this point.
Yeah. He's been far from perfect, but again, I mean, I go back to that play. If he's throwing with the wind at his back, maybe that pass isn't short at all and it's right on the money. And I just thought that was a terrible decision because going into overtime, you don't know if you're going to have to kick a long field goal.
Right.
So why kick into the wind when you can kick with the wind at your back? I just thought that was a terrible, terrible decision.
I don't know. I mean, the coaching situation, I'm going to say something, and then if you want to comment on it, or we can just let it go and go to break, and then we'll come back and do whatever. But I have lost a lot of faith in Gerard Mayo. It's only been 9 games. I wasn't expecting them to be barn burners or anything. I'm getting really there was a joke going around on both 98.5 and WEI in Boston, which is kind of funny. They've kind of gone back and forth about it. Not like against each other. They're actually on the same. They're actually on the same plane, which is, I guess, atypical for those two stations in that city. But they were joking about, like, making a joke about how Gerard Mayo is like pretending like he's like a CEO head coach, like a Mike Tomlin or whatever. But he's never like talking to anyone. He's just standing on the sidelines. In fact, Adam Jones actually made a joke, which I thought was funny. I'll give him credit for this. I'm sure a lot of people don't like him, and I'm not really a crazy big fan of his, but I thought it was kind of funny when I heard it on Twitter, him saying that it's a drinking game is basically every single time the CBS broadcast shows him standing and talking to them when you take a drink. Good luck, have a safe afternoon. And I thought that was fair, because I honestly have lost a lot of faith in some of his decisions. I think some things he takes from Bill, and I think I can tangibly see it on film. But I think that there have been a couple of decisions, like the wind thing and like some other stuff, and like some of his comments, where I feel like he just has like diarrhea of the mouth, where he just like needs to just shut the F up. We were talking about politics before the show started, talk about Donald Trump. It's like, Jesus, just keep your mouth shut.
Take away Trump's phone and take away the microphone from Gerard Mayo.
Like, I don't care what side of the political party or whatever aisle you're on. Like Jesus, like, dude, someone take that guy's social media away. But anyway, but like, it's like Gerard just like can't help himself. He's just been such a mess. And again, I know it's a learning experience. I know he's new. We talk about Drake May being in his rookie season. Well, so was Gerard Mayo.
Mhm.
And I think the Crafts understood that there were going to be some growing pains up and down. What I don't appreciate is some things that just make no. I don't like him not being as involved in some of the conversations that I'm seeing. He talks about AVP being the assistant head coach and like he basically runs the offense. But like I know they've had a lot of injuries and we've both expressed how we understand that. I also feel like he's not really I'd never even see him and like Covington like have conversations. How are you going to make those adjustments? What's the wind conversation we're talking about? Like I don't know. I've just been disappointed so far. It's only 9 games in. Look, I don't care. Look, I'm going to say something, Russ. I love you, and I don't want to speak for you, so I don't want to misinterpret this. But I know you're upset about the Bill firing. I swear there are a lot of listeners who are upset that Bill was fired as well, and that you think Gerard Mayo should be fired. There is 0.0 chance that he's fired within his first 2 seasons. There's no way he doesn't finish this year and at least go one more year before they make a change. I don't even think that's going to be the case, but I think right now it's trending, Steve, in the wrong direction, essentially. So anyway, end of rant.
Well, I'll say this. And do you want to talk about the 2-point?
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that. So let's talk about the 2-point thing, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back. So let's do that. So should they have gone for 2 to win the game or potentially lose it, or was going to tie it and go to overtime the right thing to do?
Well, again, I looked at it from the macro point. Okay, you just drove down the field. The Titans defense, if you notice on that last drive, they weren't getting the pressure that they were all game long. They were starting to get a little tired. You had them on their heels. You scored that last touchdown. The time to strike was right there. You win the game, you go home. If you don't make it, that at least you went for the win on the 3-yard line. And the way the Titans were running the football all game long, I'm thinking to myself, this is a bad move kicking this, because if you don't win the coin toss, you will not see the ball. And, other than a botched handoff at the Patriots 7-yard line, they wouldn't have seen the ball. They had a third and about 1.5 yards, and they had been dominating at the line of scrimmage. I had no illusions that they were going to stop them at the 7. It was just a bobbled snap by Rudolph that allowed the Patriots to get the ball back. Otherwise, they wouldn't have seen the football. And that's exactly what I was afraid of. And I thought they should have went for 2. You're 2-6, okay? It's not like you're fighting for playoff seeding, right? You're on the road. You come back with a miraculous touchdown at the end of regulation. Go for the win at that point. I did not see the logic and going to overtime. You had them on their heels. I thought it was a really bad decision.
Yep. I'm kind of torn. I feel like if this was like the Tom Brady era of the Patriots, or like you're like a legit contender, I would just say just tie the game, go to overtime. Either win the coin toss and your quarterback will make a play for you, or maybe your defense can get a stop and then you go ahead and go down the field and win it. I think in this situation where we're not expecting them to win a ton of games, they're not contending. It's like you're playing with house money, dude. Just either go for it or don't. Like they could have just ended it. What's the point? It's like Joey Sly missed a field goal, early in the game. I know he made one later and kind of made it back for it. Behringer, who's been good, was terrible in this game for the most part. Your offense had drops again. Offensive line was having some issues. Drake was playing well, but the defense was getting gashed. You couldn't run the ball to save your life. It's like, screw it. Just go for it. I mean, have a call. And Mayo's answer to me, Steve, I honestly came away feeling like he was almost covering up for AVP not being ready for the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd's coming in. Todd, what would you have done? I'm honestly curious. What would you have gone? Would you have tied it or gone for 2? I don't know. I thought Gerard was covering for AVP. I came away feeling like the offense wasn't ready to go for that situation. But
Yeah, and the other thing is your running game was non-existent.
exactly.
So, it's like you're going to start your end of the field. I mean, you're going to have to throw it all the way down the field because your running game you're not getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, I look at that and I just thought, hey, you have them on their heels. They're a little bit winded. They're getting a little tired. Then just go ahead and you only have to make 3 more yards and you go home with a win. And I think if you're talking about developing a rookie quarterback, that's such a great opportunity to develop this guy. Hey, game's on the line. We need 3 more yards and we go home as a winner. I mean, show some faith, because I didn't have faith in the defense being able to stop him. And, that proved to be the correct, anyway.
Well, let's step aside here for podcast purposes, take a break, and then we can talk about the trade deadline and get into the preview against the Bears. All right. So we will be back, everybody, right after this. All right, we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri, as always, both here by PatsFans.com. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and like, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. I want to give a shout out to Ian Logue, who actually just added a couple new things to the site if people want to check it out. Our fearless leader there. And then also shout out to Russ Goldman, just because I love Russ and I like busting his balls and I miss him. But Steve, we got things to talk about, man. So where do you want to start with the trade deadline overall? We can go any direction you want.
Just jump right in and give me your thoughts.
I would say that I was a little disappointed they didn't add. And I know that is a weird thing to say. I have been pro them getting rid of veteran players who are on expiring contracts who might only get you a day 3 pick. And some people were like, well, what's the point of trading? Like, I don't want to get rid of this player, but like, I'll just use him as an example. What's the point of trading Jonathan Jones for a 4th round pick when you could use him the rest of the year? I agree. But if Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, and I'm assuming these conversations have taken place, otherwise they wouldn't be doing their jobs the way that I would anticipate them to. If he's not in their long-term plans, then yes, then get the pick.
Right.
They have so much cap room. They're not getting. People are talking about I saw Bill make a comment on his one of his 17,000 shows he's doing now on NBC. He talks about how you could get a pick now versus a pick a year from now with the compensatory picks. What he's not understanding is that, for one, we don't know if that's Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo's vision, and for two, if they have $125 million in cap space, they should be spending some of that money, which means it's going to offset some of the compensation that these other players are getting, so they won't get the comp pick. So if Gerard Mayo tells me, no, we're not going to re-sign Jonathan Jones, we're going to move on and go younger, whatever, then you should have traded him. Then you should have traded that guy. So anyway, went off a little rant. I would have added some of the younger players. There was a player in Greg Newsome, who I want to say came out of Kansas State, but I'm probably wrong. But he plays for the Browns. He's 24. He's a good corner. And they're not going to re-sign him. They were talking about trading him. Sounds like they're going to let him walk. I would be totally interested in somebody like that because I think Christian Gonzalez needs a running mate back there in the secondary because right now they're just playing with one hand tied behind their back. But I would have added, if there was a player like that, I'm not looking to add DeAndre Hopkins. I think he is a perfect fit for what the Chiefs needed. They are a contending team with a good quarterback. You're looking at a veteran receiver who's not in his prime, but can still make some plays. And that's not who you want to get Drake May with. You want to get Drake May with a guy in his first couple of years so that they can grow together and build a chemistry for an extended period of time. This isn't a 1 or 2 fucking year, sorry. The 1 or 2 freaking year, fix patch job. You know what I mean, Steve? So I was a little disappointed they didn't add anything. I was also almost a little disappointed they didn't move anybody else because I thought they could have added another pick, like someone like Devon Godchow. Like there was a lot of rumors about him going to San Francisco. I think if you could have gotten a 3rd or 4th round pick for him,
Yeah, see,
I think that seems like it's a layup.
and from what I was hearing, San Francisco, I believe, wanted to give a 6th for Godchow, and I think that's way underselling, especially since you just re-signed this guy, And same with Jonathan Jones. They said they had an offer for Jonathan Jones for another 6th round pick, and I'm like, hey, don't give these guys away, for something like that. They're worth more than that. And so I wasn't really upset that they didn't trade those guys. But like you, I was hoping they would add some pieces. Not like they're going to jump into contention, but you're building for the future. And at the same time, like if you picked up a tackle at the trade deadline, it would keep your quarterback upright and maybe get some running game going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there any other player that you were kind of interested in, or do you feel like they missed the boat on
I was just curious to see if they were just going to pull the trigger on anybody. I know there was some rumors of a tight end, a wide receiver. I mean, if it was a young wide receiver, I wouldn't have no issue with it. But because they're just not getting the production out of their guys. But I was really hoping for a tackle, either offensive or defensive.
Right. Right. It's funny. It's like some people might listen to the show and be like, well, they've spent a lot of time complaining about how they can't stop the run and how many problems they're having up the defense. Why the hell are you going to trade, your best interior defensive lineman? Yeah. My statement would be, I don't think he's going to be in the long-term plans. And they're getting gashed anyway, so screw it. Just get an asset to help you build for the future. Because I don't think if you take Devon Godchow off the team right now, I don't think your record really changes by a win or a loss going down the stretch here. I just don't. So, I mean, the run defense needs to be better. But from some of the things, you hear players say this all the time: running the ball and defending the run. And if you've played football, you'll understand this. And if you haven't played football, I hope you can at least kind of get where I'm going with it. Running the ball and defending the run is more mentality than anything else. It needs to be a physical, you are outworking, and extending yourself physically better than the guys across from you. And if you've played football, you'll get that. If you haven't played, then at least you'll understand kind of where that comes from. Like the passing game, I think is so scheme and so spacing and timing and precision. The running game is just like what football has always been like the metal of it. It's the balls of it. It's just like I'm up, like Steve and I are going against each other. It's me against him. I want to impose my will and my power against him, and he wants to do the same to me. And when you have that team mentality, that's why I love that Jets win so much, honestly. What's the first thing that you run, Steve, in goal line? Or I'm sorry, I just ruined it. What's the first thing that you run in training camp? It's goal line. They work on the short yardage. That's how they won the game versus the Jets. Was he in? Was he not in? We didn't have the camera angle, but they called it. He's in. We think he was in. Let's go with it. But at the same time, that is so important for a team. And I think a team that even almost more important, just as important as it is for a team that's contending, it's also really important for a team that's maybe circling the drain a little bit like the Patriots are, which we kind of expected, because you are building chemistry, you're building camaraderie, and you're getting some momentum and some steam to kind of move forward and attack your next opponent. So I thought, to me, that was huge. As far as the rest of the trade deadline goes, again, I was just surprised they didn't move one other player. I would have liked them to add at the end, but I I would have liked them to add, but I wasn't surprised they didn't. I was just a little bit more surprised they didn't give one other player away. I thought there would be someone that they might have moved, towards the end. But anyway, we can move on, and we'll move on to the 49ers game here. Or not the 49ers game, geez. I was looking at something else. We'll move on to the Bears game. So initial thoughts on the Chicago Bears game is fascinating. You saw the electric ending of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, the first pick overall, the second pick overall, playing with that Hail Mary and everything that went into that. Now you get to see Caleb Williams versus Drake May, the first and third overall pick. So that'll be really fun. I think Chicago has done a really good job of basically Chicago's done a really good job of kind of building around Caleb. I think Caleb has looked exactly like he was kind of expecting to look. He has made some really questionable decisions, has come up short on a couple of throws, probably done a little bit too much at times. And at the same time, those things that he did at USC and what we talked about in the pre-draft discourse are the same things we're seeing now. On the flip side, he's extending plays. He's making incredible throws. It looks like his teammates have really bought in around him. The culture has totally changed with him under center, I think. And they have some weapons. I mean, you're talking about Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, and you get a pretty good running game. The offensive line's played better, but I still think the offensive line is a little I think the offensive line is just a little it's been a little bit inconsistent. It's been kind of helped by his ability to kind of move things around. But again, I'm looking forward to this matchup with both of them. I think Caleb Williams has been exactly as advertised. And I mean that in a complimentary way. Steve, give me your thoughts on the Chicago Bears, just as them before we get into the matchups, them as a team and kind of coming into this week.
Well, it seems like the Bears are, I think their defense is pretty good. I think their offense has a ton of talented skill position guys. They're another team that really needs some offensive line help. I think Caleb Williams has come as advertised. I mean, again, we talked about it earlier. I mean, with the young quarterbacks, he's made some bad plays. He's had some bad games where they won, even though he did not play well. But he's had those wow moments that we expected to see. And that's the thing, with the Bears. I think they've made a lot of improvements. And, at 4-4, I think that they're a pretty good football team. I think, if you look at the Bears on paper, right? I think they're a much better team than the Patriots are right now.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, they're certainly playing better. I mean, their defense has been, I guess, a little bit up and down, but I mean, offensively, Caleb has really changed. He's been a spark plug for them. I mean, overall as a franchise, and I think you've seen it reflected in their play on all three phases.
Yeah,
I think you even see it in the coaching staff's demeanor. I know that sounds stupid, but it really lets you look at a press conference between Matt Eberflus this year versus last year, and you tell me that you don't see a difference in his demeanor.
Oh yeah, because they have confidence now.
Yeah,
they have confidence across the board that they can, if they're playing their game on any given week, they can hang with just about anybody. And, that is so huge because with that confidence, it permeates the whole building. And, the entire team will be affected by that, the coaches. And, that's how, winning trends begin, is you got to have that confidence.
All right, Steve, let's get into the matchups here. Let's go Patriots offense first versus the Bears defense. We'll go Patriots offense versus the Bears defense in the running game. Who do you like and why?
You just have to like the Bears here. I mean, the Patriots have been unable to run the football.
It's very discouraging because you felt like that was going to be one of the few good things they did going into the year.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears have given up some big chunk runs. We saw that. Their front seven hasn't been great against the run, but when you're looking at what the Patriots have been able to do the last few weeks, I mean, you can't be confident that they're going to flip the script on Sunday. I think you have to go with the Bears here.
Yeah. What about in the passing game, Steve? It's like if I could kind of start with my thoughts, I would say, look, I mean, the Bears have a couple of really talented, players, in the secondary. I wouldn't say they're a super strong secondary necessarily, but they have some talent back there. I feel like I kind of want to give the Bears the edge on this area too, but it has nothing to do with Drake May. He's the only reason I even am kind of waffling. It's the ability of the receivers right now and something going on in the receiver room that just doesn't feel right for the Patriots. Not only have they been dealing with drops, I haven't liked anything about it. Literally nothing about the receivers have made me happy at this point. Javon Baker's not ready to get on the field. Jalen Polk has been an absolute disaster. I think Kendrick Bourne started rounding into form, and he's coming off an injury, so I give him a little bit of a pass, but I don't think he's been playing at his level yet. Pop Douglas is either involved or for some reason not involved at all. It's just like and KJ Osborne, says he wants to be here, but also his agent leaked that he wanted to be traded. So I don't know. I just don't love where the receiver room is at. Literally, I have no faith in the passing game at all, aside from Drake May and Hunter Henry. That's it.
Yeah. I thought Kendrick Bourne is showing signs of getting back his game a little bit on Sunday. You mentioned Javon Baker, and he wasn't targeted, but he had two plays that when watching the All-22 where he had gained separation. He was open on deep routes, but both times May was pressured and didn't have time to look down the field and get him the ball. He was forced to scramble. And those, when you look at those kind of plays, maybe there's something there. We're really grasping at straws here, but at the same time, when you're only giving the guy a couple of snaps, he had two plays that could have been big chunk plays for you. Mm-hmm. And he only played like 9 offensive snaps, but there's no consistency in the wide receiver room. Like you said, Douglas is either a big part of the game or not at all. Bourne is still trying to find his feet. Butte has shown big flashes, but he's not consistent out there. And, you mentioned Osborne and Thornton, those guys. I doubt either one of them will be active the rest of the way unless there's some kind of a nagging injury.
Right. Let's go to the Bears offense in the running game versus the Patriots defense, Steve. I'm going to pull up the numbers right now. I don't have them right in front of me, and I should have, so I apologize for a poor podcast planning segment here. But honestly, the way the Patriots have defended the run lately, I don't really feel super positive about how this is going to come out. I mean, they're essentially, the Patriots defense is, again, some of it is because of injury, but it's been one of those situations where they're just not responding to the situations. And this isn't like an anomaly at this point. This is a trend. And if you look at the Bears, let's see, they are averaging
112 yards a game.
Yeah, 112 yards a game. Thank you. And they're also averaging the 6th most yards per carry at 5 even. So They haven't had a ton of explosive runs. They've had a decent amount of 20-yarders, but they're more of a consistent thing. And I just feel like it could be a situation, Steve, here if the Patriots can't get this under the control, where not only is Caleb Williams going to pull a rabbit out of his hat a couple different times, you're going to get death by 1,000 paper cuts on the ground.
Yeah, and they haven't had good run blocking either. That's why they're kind of like 23rd in the league.
Yeah.
Running the ball. But at the same time, right, you're missing Peppers, Duggar, Bentley, Barmore, like all your guys that clog up the run in the middle. They're not in there. So
this has more. I don't want to. I'm gonna use a term that Russ will hate, because I'm gonna marginalize this a bit, but this has, for me, Steve, the reason I'm giving the Bears this one is more against the Patriots than it is for the Bears.
Yeah. I mean, they gave up 167 yards to Tennessee, and, it wasn't like a couple of big plays here and there that, they did get a 32-yard run on the first, play of the first series of the game. But, it was consistent all game long. Later in the game, they started tightening up a little bit, but, on that final drive in overtime, I mean, 8 of the 13 plays were on the ground, and they ate up like 7.5 minutes of the clock. And so I think the Bears have the advantage here.
What about the passing game, Steve?
You look at, I mean, he's got DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze. I mean, those are some really talented guys in the passing game. Plus him.
They got a really good receiver room. I'd love to see Drake May with that receiver room.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking, when we were talking yesterday about doing the show and talking about the Bears, I'm like, man, if you handed him those guys, I would love to see that offense. Not saying he's better than Caleb Williams, but I just think that this, this Patriots offense would be a lot more fun to watch. Anyway, that being said, the Bears pass protection isn't great either. They've given up 29 sacks this year. So, I mean, can the Patriots generate any kind of rush on Williams? And if so, can they contain him? So those are big ifs for me, but just because we're a Patriot podcast, I'm going to give a very slight edge to the Patriots here.
All right, let's get into the 3 keys. I guess I'll let you go first. What are 3 keys to victory for the Patriots to win this game versus Chicago?
They have to have balance on offense. I mean, they have to be able to run the ball. You can't have your running backs gaining 15 yards for the game, because I don't care how great, you could have Tom Brady in his prime, if you're only running the ball for 15 yards, he's going to be hard pressed to win. I think so. You have to get some kind of balance going, because that's a staple of this offense. You have to run the ball and set up play action. Well, if you're not getting anything in the running game, they're not going to respect that. So I think that's a big key. And on the flip side, I think number 2 is you have to slow down the run enough where you're making them one-dimensional, which will help your secondary. That might be asking for,
you're playing with fire a little bit there.
Yes, absolutely. You might be asking to unleash thunder on you, but you can't let them gash you in the running game consistently, because that in itself is going to open a play action for them. And my 3rd key is special teams, turnovers. I'm going to combine all this. And 3rd down, you have to win all 3 of those. I mean, they went against the worst team in turnover ratio last week, and they were -2.
Yep.
That was inexcusable.
Yep.
So,
Just before I even start with my three keys, just to kind of clarify my comment on your thing about playing with fire. What I mean by that is Caleb is a special player. He's a special player that has unique passing arm talent. And so it's like you want to make him one-dimensional because it will put the ball in his hands. But as I've used this phrase, I think twice so far on the show, there's a chance he pulls a rabbit out of his hat and he makes like these crazy, like 10-second long, like, passing times where he does like a pirouette and a 360 and then launches it 20 yards down the field and Roma Dunze's there to catch it or whoever, you know what I mean? And that's just kind of what I meant. I mean, that was the ability about all three of these young guys. I know we're just talking about May and Caleb for this week, but like throw Jaden Daniels there too. That was the ability, but all three of these guys that made it incredibly unique and like the modern kind of quarterback model of, I'm not saying they're all same play styles, but they all can extend plays and they all can make plays with their legs and have crazy arm talent. You've seen it with Drake. I don't need to go on about Drake any more than I already have. Anybody who's listening to the show is most likely a Patriots fan, so they've seen it too. Caleb, you saw it at USC, you saw it at Oklahoma, you saw it at a daily, you see it on a weekly basis now with Chicago. And Jaden Daniels, I mean, what more do you have to see more than that Hail Mary play last week, which one of the most crazy plays of the year. 13 seconds. The longest time a quarterback has had between snap and throw since Next Gen started tracking it. It was ridiculous on so many levels. And we could honestly do a show on just that play in game alone, but we won't. I just wanted to go ahead again. Because we're talking about Caleb and Drake going head to head and Jaden and Caleb just went head to head and the three of them being drafted, sequentially all back to back. So it's like, I just have been impressed with their ability. I just think it's fascinating. But anyway, three keys for me. I think one thing for me that I really want to see is I just want to see the passing game to be efficient. I want to see just simple. He's open and catches the ball. I'm not looking. Would I love a good 60-yard bomb to Kayshon Boutte in the end zone down the right sideline? Yes. But I just want to see Pop Douglas or KB get a 7 or 8 yard pass to extend to a first down. Just a simple get open and catch the ball. The efficient passing game needs to get better there. My second thing for me is something in the same vein as you, and I won't expound on it, but it's just stopping the run. I mean, they can't stop the run. They are bleeding on defense because they're constantly, for some reason on offense, they're constantly running, passing for incompletion, and then punting on the drives that don't go nowhere. They run for like 3 yards, but defensively, they're letting like guys run for like 4 or 5 yards a clip. So they're constantly facing like 3rd and 2s or 3rd and 3s and on defense, and they're put in like a ridiculous spot. So that to me needs to be, sincerely improved. And then I want to see the special teams get cleaned up a bit. I think that they've had an issue. As good as Behringer has been, I think on balance, I think right now he's either shanking a kick, which every once in a while he definitely does. He has some boomers and then he'll shank one really bad. But I also think he's out kicking his coverage sometimes. I think the coverage hasn't always been good. If Brendan Schooler's not there to make the tackle, the returner is going for 40. Like it's like literally all up to Schooler. And then, Joey only missed 1 field goal. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but like you can't overcome losing those 3 points. You make that field goal, in which he should have made, and you probably win that game. So that's kind of an issue here. But I just think the kickoff and punt coverage and the punting inconsistencies have been an issue, and they need to clean that up this week.
Okay.
Let's get into let's wrap it up. Steve. Give me a prediction for the game.
I think the Bears win. They're at home. I think it's going to be 27-17.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to go Patriots 23-20. I'm going to put my Russ Goldman rose-colored glasses on, and I am going to say that the Patriots clean up some of these things. I think Caleb, I think that we're going to come out. Put it this way. I will say that I don't have a ton of confidence in the Patriots necessarily, and I don't necessarily feel any type of way against the Bears. But I just think the Patriots have been very close to knocking on the door a little bit over the last couple weeks of getting things close to right. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I might be done after this week, by the way, of giving them any benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. They're going to clean up some of these things that we've been talking about because they've been very consistent. It hasn't been good, but it's been consistent. They've been like literally the same issues. I feel like we've done a very similar show for 2 months now, you know? So I think that they're going to do something here, and I'm going to go with that somebody in the secondary makes a big play against Caleb Williams and he turns the ball over. I think that we're going to be talking about, I'm hoping we're going to come out of this game next Wednesday and talk about Drake May making plays to win them the game. What I actually think is going to happen is that that Caleb Williams, whether he is successful or turns the ball over, is going to be what ultimately dictates this game.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I have to run.
No, I know. I know you got to go, and I got to go too.
One final thought: Saquon Barkley.
That backwards hurdle, stupid.
When I saw that, I was just like, did they run that in reverse? That clip? That was incredible.
He comes off the edge, spins, and then turns his back and backwards hurdles over the defender.
Yes.
I'm like, what is that? That guy is not like I think NFL Network or whatever had Jalen Hurts being like, that guy is not human. I'm like, no, he's a friggin' alien. That's crazy. That is nuts. But anyway, my only final thought is that I'm curious to see how they respond this week. I thought that was a disappointing loss. I think that there's a little bit of turmoil going on there. I think a win would go a long way, not only for Drake May's confidence, but for the team and for the coaching staff as well. So we'll be curious about that. We'll get into that next week. For Steve Balestrieri, I'm Derek Havens. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Patriots 4th and 2. We will be back with you next Wednesday, and we will talk to you guys then. Go Pats.